How you doing? I'm Sean McVay with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and in this video I'm going to go over some tactics for late season hunting. And I actually have two different videos that I'm going to be doing, this one and another one, with utilizing different tactics in each. For this particular one, I'm doing a long distance hunt in the state of New York, which is several hours away. I did minimal scouting. I did one brief scouting trip in the summertime, and I did harvest a nice 8-pointer during the regular archery season. But now in the late season, I have another buck tag that comes active. It's a gun tag that becomes active in the late season. Now here's the first strategy that I had as far as doing this hunt. I knew that the deer habits and travel patterns and food sources would change from what I was looking at in the summertime to now when it's cold and we're getting periods of snow and things like that. So I knew I needed to get up to this spot and just take a look around and get a little information to see if I can tell what changes have taken place and where might be a good spot to set up. We really have to stop meeting like this. It's getting old, isn't it? Ugh, these mornings, these early mornings today, we have 27 degrees and it's time to go to New York. So I drove up to New York in the morning. Is it like the last day or two of the gun season? And I didn't really want to hunt during the gun season with my bow, but I knew I needed that information. So I went out and just crossed my fingers, hoped to not get shot by somebody. And it was snowing. So I sat in the stand for a little while. I did hear movement, but I was in this hemlock patch, hoping to get some deer crossing through on some trails that wove through those hemlocks. And I could hear deer moving just outside of sight, out on the other side of some of the hemlocks. And I did a little grunting. They didn't come my way, but I could hear some movement. So I sat till around 10, and then I had specific waypoints picked out in my GPS. And I went and looked at those waypoints, and the one that I was most interested in ended up looking really good. Now let me give you a little drawing of the basic layout of what I'm hunting. So this is a big patch of public land, and it's shaped, let's say about like this. Now in this section, like right here, there's a chunk of private land. And the back end of that is a field. And in the public land, there's a clear cut from years ago, like right here. And the public land is a little bit bigger. This isn't to scale. I mean, it's probably about 1,000 acres, and this is probably only 75 acres, the private land here. I don't know. But the clear cut area in the late season, it offers good cover for the deer during gun season because there's so many branches and stuff. You can't really shoot in there, like from all the little saplings. But also when snow is on the ground, it covers up the food sources. And so they go in there and they feed on the twigs and the browse and the buds of the little branches, from the branches of the stuff that's growing. So I really wanted to focus on this clear cut for my hunt. So I started off down here where I was in the hemlocks. And I got down and I wanted to check out right here because right here was the beginnings of a spur that came off. I'll just kind of draw some topo lines here. It kind of came down like this. So I figured that the deer would come up into that thicket utilizing that. And so right here was my focal point. And when I got there, I hit the nail on the head. There was clear tracks going in and out of the thicket right there. And I was excited. So I was like, okay, my information has been gathered. This is what I need. Now I want to leave and go home and let this place cool off for a week. I was very successful on another hunt in New York where I did the same exact thing, except it was near the end of archery season, and I came back and I harvested, I'll grab the rack, this 8-pointer right here. So it was near the end of October. I went to a spot. I got down when I was finished and I scouted another area that I thought looked good on the topo map, and I found good buck sign. I left immediately and I came back a week later. I like leaving places alone for a week, to let the deer calm down and get acclimated to not being disturbed. And then leaving your spot cool off for a week is definitely helpful. So I went back in the morning and I got set up in this spot. It is December the 16th at 4 in the morning. I'm a little bit later getting started than I wanted. That is life sometimes. Catch delays, things like that. It is my last trip to New York for the year. This is it. We're closing it out today. And it's gonna be tough, 20 degrees right now. The high is about 28 where I'm going for the day. And I'm not excited about sitting in that kind of temperature all day. So my strategy is to sit the spot in the morning, try to hang in there till 10, and then get down, walk around, try to get myself warmed back up. I'm hoping that the winds aren't as strong as they're saying. I mean, they're only calling for 10 to 15 mile an hour, which doesn't sound like much, but when it's really cold, that really can get to you. So, I'm just gonna have to hope that I can maintain in this cold weather and walk around, maybe set up for a midday sit, get down and walk around a little bit more and set up for an evening sit. So there's basically, that's one strategy, a 3-sit strategy. The other would be to just walk around during the day. There's snow on the ground, so I'll get to see where the fresh deer tracks are, which is good information. And then just set up for an evening sit. We'll see. We'll take it, play it by ear, see how I'm doing with the cold. We praise the Lord for this opportunity to even go out. Let's see what happens. And around 8:30, I had a doe and a spike come in the thicket behind me about 60 yards away and bed down. I got some footage of that. After a while, the spike got up and moved over and bedded back down. Another hour or two passed and a whole bunch of deer began to filter into the thicket from the surrounding areas. And eventually, a big doe and a fawn were working their way right down to me. And what I want to do is stop for a second and point out that there is a hemlock tree right next to the tree I got up in. Now, there were different trees that I could get in the area. And this tree that I did get in was a little bit closer to the trail that goes in and out of the thicket, or the clear cut. It's closer than what I really wanted. However, I wanted the hemlock for coverage, because one thing I even experienced earlier this year is I was a little too much silhouetted on a tree, and the deer spotted me when I was trying to get my video camera around, so I messed up on getting a nice 8-pointer in Pennsylvania. I wanted that hemlock for cover. And so the deer came down and was really right underneath my tree on the other side of it, by the hemlock, the doe. And she ended up winding me. Like, the wind was going straight at her at that point. And she was also very nervous. Every time a muzzleloader gunshot would go off in the distance, she would flinch. So she was on high alert. And behind her was coming a spike. And then behind the spike was more of a racked buck coming. And when she, got a little spooked and ran off, all the deer took off and cleared out the whole clear cut.
Spike never looked so good. And when they were running off, or getting ready to run off, I could see a bigger buck was coming. I was like, couldn't tell how many points he had. He definitely had more antler, though, on his head than the spike. I think I saw about 6 deer run off. Picked a good area, at least.
If that hadn't happened and she would have continued to go past me, then the spike and that other buck would have come by and my plan would have worked out. And so my point, though, for late season is, especially in a situation where you're traveling a long distance for a hunt, this is helpful, but it can even apply near your house, is look for areas where the deer can browse on twigs and buds and things like that, especially if you're hunting in an area like what I'm talking about, where snow can cover the ground and cover the food sources. Now they gotta go somewhere else to get food, and that turns to the twigs and stuff like that. So having young growth is a good area to focus on, which is why I focused on there. Now here's the next part of my plan for the day. So I sat until about 1 o'clock, and it was tough, it was cold. And I thought about moving over here to this location to try to catch some deer that might move to this field on private land. This is just a grass field. They probably lease it out to farmers for hay. I think they cut it for hay in that field, but it's cut short right before the snow was. I could see that the grass was all real short. Now the snow when I got to this spot this morning, there was about 2 inches of snow on the ground, but it had snowed about 4 inches while I was in the stand. So now my point is, in my mind, I'm thinking the deer might still come to that field to see if they can still access the clover and things like that, and they're going to find out there's too much snow, and then they're going to leave. But maybe I can catch them coming. There's a valley right here between here and over here. So this is a hilltop over here, and this is actually a hilltop here. The problem is the wind was going that way, so I thought, well, this isn't really going to work if I go there. It was going west, and it was also coming from the north. It was switching back and forth. So here I am right here, and the deer ran across this way, and they weren't real spooked. Like, the doe was nervous, and she knew something wasn't quite right. She never put her tail up. She never snorted. And the other deer didn't really know. That one deer was running, so the rest of them were running. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, they probably didn't go much farther than up here, up near the top of the thicket. You know, this property up in here, they could have gone in here. This is posted, but I don't think anybody hunts it. And so the deer might view it as a sanctuary. So I thought, okay, the wind's been in my favor all day. It's been mostly like this and like that. The deer that are up here, they're not winding me. So if I take my time and get through this thicket and get like right in here on the edge of the public land, I mean, obviously this kind of comes up and is right on the edge like that. So if I get up right in, this area, so, somewhere in here, then the deer might go to the field and realize they can't eat there, and then they might come down and go back into the clear cut. And so I finally made the decision around 1 o'clock or so to do this. And I got there around 2:15, whatever, and I climbed up the tree. I was literally still on, just finished reaching the height that I wanted to reach. My backpack was on my back, my bow was on the ground. I look over, and there are all the deer filing. They came down like this, and they came right to the edge, and they were going right out here like this. They were filing right out into that field. So I could see there was a bunch of the does, and then a spike was behind them. Deer like to hang out in groups this time of year because there's safety in numbers. Like, in this situation, there was about 6 doe. And I was trying to reach in to get my video camera out of my camera bag, because I had my video camera bag on, around under my arm here, and my backpack on my back. And I was trying to get the camera out so I could go like this and video them. Well, the very last doe happened to look over as I was doing that, and she saw me start to move like that, and I just froze. And then so she got a little nervous. She didn't get real spooked, because I froze and I didn't really stand out too well, but she knew something wasn't right. So she just started to walk fast out into the field area. So that enabled me to get the camera up and turned on and get some video footage as they kind of quickly walked across the field. And the snow was too deep for them to really be able to access the clover and stuff. Because that one deer saw me, and rather than cut back down into the clear cut right near where I was set up, they ended up going across and into a different area of the woods. And then a little while later, another spike came out and followed the tracks of where the other deer had gone. And the larger racked buck never showed up. And when I say larger racked, I mean he was larger than the spikes, But I mean, I only got a glance of him, and I would say he was probably at best a 2.5-year-old, like, 7-point type of a deer, or maybe a 1.5-year-old 5-point. I really don't know. I didn't get a clear enough view of him. But he never showed up with the other deer. And then near the end of the hunt, I saw a group of deer come out of the woods and come down this wood line and cut back in when they saw they couldn't really access the food. And there was like a group of 3 of them, but I couldn't get any video footage of that. So here's some things that I wanted to just, finalize when I'm talking about this. Is this field, especially if there wasn't snow on the ground, if you have an area where you can see that there's a grass field or any kind of a field, it's a possible good food source coming into the late season, especially if a lot of the acorns in the forest have been eaten up and things like that. If you're hunting in an area where the snow is just kind of starting, the deer are probably still on that pattern of going to somewhere like that for food. So they may still visit it. And if you hunt in a location not far from it, you might still be able to catch them coming or going. In this situation, if I hadn't spooked the one doe, there is a chance the deer could have come out to the field and said, okay, you know what, we can't access this food because now there's like 6 inches of snow on the ground after it had snowed all day, and they might have just come back down into here and given me a 20-yard shot. I only had a buck tag, so I was looking for at least a 2.5-year-old or better buck, so I would not have shot any of those deer anyway, but still, I had the right idea. And the whole thing I want to get back to also with the selecting the next spot, you have to play the wind. The wind is the ultimate crucial thing. When that deer winded me down here, the wind was shifting and going, literally directly at the deer. The deer was right here, and the wind was going straight at her. And for the majority of the day, though, it was coming from the north and the west. So a situation over here, although it might have been good, like the 3 deer that I said I saw come, they came from this area somewhere over here where I was thinking of going, but I knew it would not work out because of these wind directions. They would wind me and I wouldn't even see the deer. But here, I knew I didn't spook those deer too hard, and I knew they probably just hung out. Deer, when they come from an area and they get spooked and go back to it, they go back to where they know was safe. Where they were safe was right in here, and I figured they probably just hung out there for the day. The last thing I want to mention here too is deer often get up and feed early when it's really cold temperatures. So in the late season, if you can get drops in temperatures and it's really cold, it forces the deer to get up and eat. So you need to be, 2:30, I was hoping, I'd still get there in time, but the deer were getting up to go eat at 2:30 and it didn't get dark till 5 o'clock. So I missed it by just a few minutes. If I was 5 minutes sooner, I would have been all set up and those deer wouldn't have spooked. It might have changed everything. So you need to be able to get in close to where they're bedded sometimes, which means you have to move real slow and quiet. So those are some ideas for hunting in the late season. Again, I have another video I'm going to do. The late season in Pennsylvania for bow opens back up after Christmas. Today is the 18th, so on the 26th it opens back up. When it opens back up, I have a game plan that I've had in place that I want to share a video on with a lot of different strategies than what I've covered here. And so I want to give you that one as well to give you more ideas on hunting in the late season. Drop my marker. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope some of this information has helped, and I wish you the best of luck out there. And everyone kept saying to me, stay warm. Yeah, right. It's hard to stay warm. And someone actually asked me to do another video on how I do my layering and stuff like that. Layering clothes for in the late season. And maybe I'll do that as well. Maybe I'll even do that next. So until next time, take care and God bless.